Robin Williams once brought a massive film production to a halt, not because of a tantrum, but because he sensed his co-star's silent pain. For over 30 years, Sally Field kept this story to herself, but what she finally shared gives us a rare look into the heart of a true legend. This wasn't some big, public display for cameras or applause. It was a quiet moment of incredible humanity that happened behind the scenes, a moment Sally Field has carried with her for decades. Now, at 78, she's decided it's a story the world needs to hear. It's not just about a beloved actor. It's about the man behind that million-watt smile, the sensitive soul who could feel another person's pain, even when they were trying their best to hide it. What he did on that incredibly difficult day might just change how you see the comedic whirlwind that was Robin Williams. To really feel the weight of this story, you have to picture the two people at its center. First, you have Sally Field, an absolute Hollywood powerhouse. With 2 Academy Awards to her name, she's an actress of incredible range, known for making every character feel deeply real and human. Whether she was the fiery factory worker in Norma Ray or the grieving mother, in Steel Magnolias, Field's career has been built on raw, unshakable honesty. She doesn't just act, she feels, and she makes the audience feel it right along with her. She has always been the relatable heart of any film she's in. And on the other side, you have Robin Williams, a force of nature that's impossible to categorize. He was more than a comedian or an actor. He was a lightning storm of creative energy. To the world, he was a genius who seemed to be channeling voices, characters, and jokes from another dimension, all at a speed that left everyone breathless. From his breakout role as Mork to his Oscar-winning turn in Good Will Hunting, Robin's public persona was one of non-stop joy and manic energy. He was the guy who could make anyone laugh at any time. His mind worked faster than anyone else's. His improvisations were legendary, and his ability to light up a room was second to none. When these two legends came together in 1993 for Mrs. Doubtfire, it was magic. The story of a divorced dad who becomes an elderly British nanny to see his kids was the perfect vehicle for their talents. Robin was the hilarious, chaotic, and often touching center of the film. Sally, playing his estranged wife Miranda, was the anchor. She was the perfect straight man to his comedic storm, grounding the film's wild premise in a believable family dynamic. Their on-screen chemistry was so real, a mix of old love, frustration, and a connection that made their broken family feel painfully authentic. The public saw 2 masters of their craft making a classic film, but behind the laughter, a much deeper, more personal story was unfolding. It was a story Sally Field held onto like a private gift for 30 years, a secret that showed a side of Robin Williams very few people ever got to see. It wasn't the sad clown cliché we sometimes hear about. It was something far more real. The quiet, intuitive, and deeply compassionate man who lived just beneath the surface. And now, she's finally telling the truth. To get why Robin's quiet. Act of kindness was so significant, you have to imagine what it was like on the set of Mrs. Doubtfire. It was basically organized chaos, and the center of that chaos was Robin Williams. The director, Chris Columbus, knew you couldn't tame Robin's genius, so he came up with a wild filming strategy. He'd have 3 or 4 cameras running at all times, all of them pointed at Robin. Why? Because nobody, not even the director, knew what Robin was going to do or say next. Sally Field said working with him was like trying to work with lightning in a bottle, dazzling, unpredictable, and totally unforgettable. She said her main job was just to stay in the moment and react to whatever tidal wave of comedy Robin unleashed. He'd do a couple of takes by the script to make sure they had what they needed, and then he'd ask for a few more to play. That's when the real magic happened. Robin would launch into a hurricane of improvisation, firing off dozens of voices, jokes, and characters. The script was just a launch pad. The result was a staggering amount of film. Columbus has said they ended up with nearly 2 million feet of it. Somewhere in a warehouse, there are supposedly over 900 boxes of unseen Mrs. Doubtfire footage, a lost treasure of Robin's genius. The set was filled with laughter. His energy was contagious, lifting the spirits of the entire cast and crew. The child actors, Lisa Jacob, Matthew Lawrence, and Mara Wilson, absolutely adored him. To them, he was just a big kid who happened to be their co-star. But his humor wasn't just for show. It was how he connected with people. He knew that the long, grueling hours of making a movie could be tough, especially for kids, so he made it his personal mission to keep things light. Of course, one of the most iconic parts of the film was Robin's physical transformation into Mrs. Doubtfire. This wasn't just a little makeup. It was a 4.5-hour process every single day, involving 8 separate prosthetic pieces. Even then, Robin used the time to entertain the makeup artists, trying out bits and refining the character before he ever stepped on set. The makeup was so good that Robin decided to test it out in the real world. He went into an adult bookstore in full Mrs. Doubtfire gear and tried to make a purchase, just to see if he could pull it off. It worked. Nobody had a clue it was him. In an even more telling moment, his own son, Zach, didn't recognize him on set until he started speaking in his real voice. This was the vibe on set, a high-energy, comedic, high-wire act. Every day was a surprise. In the famous scene where Mrs. Doubtfire's frosting-covered face starts melting, the icing dripping into the teacup was a total accident. But Robin, without missing a beat, improvised. "There you go. You've got your cream and your sugar now," turning a mistake into a classic movie moment. This was the Robin everyone saw, the brilliant, quick-witted comedian. But Sally Field was about to see a completely different side of him, a quiet, still, and deeply human side that appeared not during a moment of comedy, but in a moment of unexpected tragedy. The day began like any other on the chaotic set of Mrs. Doubtfire. They were getting ready to film one of the movie's most emotional scenes, the courtroom divorce. Sally Field was in her trailer, waiting for her call, when the phone rang. It was the call she had been dreading. On the other end of the line, a doctor from her father's nursing facility delivered the news. Her dad, who had suffered a severe stroke a couple of years earlier, had just had another massive one. He was gone. Then the doctor asked a question no child ever wants to hear. Did she want them to put him on a resuscitator? Sally knew what her father would have wanted. With a shaking voice, she told the doctor, "No, he did not want that. Just let him go." Then she made one last heartbreaking request. "And please," she pleaded, "lean down and say, 'Sally says goodbye.'" After hanging up, Sally was, in her own words, beside herself, with grief. The news was a physical blow. Her heart was shattered. But the machine of a multi-million-dollar movie doesn't just stop. The crew is waiting, the lights are set, the schedule is everything. So, like the total pro she's always been, Sally tried to wall off her pain. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and got ready to walk onto the set and perform. She was an actress. This was the job. She told herself she would just get through the scene and fall apart later, in private. She came onto the set, trying with everything she had to act like nothing was wrong. She wasn't crying or making a scene. She was holding it all in, building. A fragile dam against a flood of sorrow. But someone noticed. In the middle of all the noise and the bright, unforgiving lights, one person saw past her professional mask. It was Robin. He walked over to her, his usual frenetic energy replaced by a quiet concern. He gently pulled her aside, away from the eyes and ears of the crew, looked at her, and asked a simple question. "Are you okay?" Still trying to keep it together, Sally deflected. "Yes, why?" she replied, hoping he'd drop it. Robin didn't push. "I don't know, just thought I'd ask," he said softly. That small, gentle question was all it took. The kindness in his eyes and the genuine care in his voice gave her permission to stop pretending. The dam broke. "No, I'm not. Robin," she admitted, her voice cracking. "My father just passed." The change in Robin was instant. His face, usually a canvas for 1,000 different characters, softened into one of deep empathy. There was no joke, no attempt to lighten the mood. There was only pure, unfiltered compassion. "Oh my God," he said, his voice firm. "We need to get you out of here right now." And then he took over. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. He walked straight to the director, Chris Columbus, and insisted they change the entire day's schedule. He explained what had happened and made it crystal clear that Sally needed to go home. In an industry famous for its rigid schedules and the show must go on attitude, this was a huge deal. Robin was using his star power not for himself, but for his grieving co-star. He didn't ask. He told them. As Sally remembers it, he made it happen. The production team scrambled to rearrange everything. They would shoot around her for the rest of the day, focusing on scenes that didn't need her. Robin's quiet command had stopped the massive film set in its tracks. He had carved out a space for simple human decency to win. Thanks to Robin, Sally left the set immediately. She went home, called her brother, and began the painful process of grieving with her family. She wasn't forced to act through her tears. She was given the grace to just be a daughter who had lost her father. It was a moment of profound kindness that happened without any fanfare. It was a side of Robin Williams the world rarely saw, the quiet, intuitive soul who understood that sometimes the most important thing you can do is see someone's pain and give them permission to feel it. That single act of kindness completely changed how Sally Field saw Robin Williams. For 3 decades, she held on to that story, considering it a precious, private gift from him. In the years that followed, as the world celebrated Robin for his wild humor and brilliant acting, Sally held the memory of the quiet man who stood up for her when she was at her most vulnerable. The thing that stunned her most was his incredible intuition. "It's a side of Robin that people rarely knew," she explained recently. "He was very sensitive and intuitive. He didn't just notice she was upset. He seemed to sense the depth of her grief before she'd even let it show. In an environment where everyone is just trying to hit their marks, Robin was focused on the person standing next to him. He had an emotional radar that was just as sharp as his comedic timing. He could read a room not just for laughs, but for pain. And this wasn't a one-time thing. As more stories have come out since his passing, a clear pattern of Robin's off-camera kindness has emerged. During the filming of Mrs. Doubtfire, Lisa Jacob, the actress who played his oldest daughter, was kicked out of her high school because they couldn't handle her remote learning schedule. When Robin saw how devastated she was, he wrote a personal letter to her principal, praising her character and urging the school to reconsider. The principal was so touched, he framed the letter. While the school didn't change its mind, the gesture showed Lisa that this global superstar saw her as a young person who deserved support. He did the same for others. During the making of the deeply distressing film Schindler's List, director Steven Spielberg was in a dark place emotionally. Robin, his friend, made a point to call him every week to perform 15 minutes of stand-up over the phone, just to give him a moment of release. He did it for Christopher Reeve after his paralyzing accident, too. The very first time Reeve laughed after his injury was when Robin burst into his hospital room pretending to be an eccentric Russian proctologist. These weren't the actions of a man looking for attention. They were the instincts of someone who couldn't stand to see others in pain and felt a duty to help. For Sally Field, that moment on the Mrs. Doubtfire set defined their friendship. She realized that his comedic genius and his profound empathy weren't separate things. They came from the same deep well of sensitivity. He felt everything, maybe more intensely than the rest of us. That sensitivity is what made him a brilliant actor, and it's also what made him a deeply compassionate man. She later said, "Robin was the best acting partner I've ever had." She loved the thrill of never knowing where he would take a scene. But her respect for him went far beyond his talent. It was rooted in the memory of his kindness. In the weeks after her father's death, Robin was a quiet source of support on set. He never pushed or pried. He was just there, ready with a gentle, word, or a perfectly timed joke when she needed it most. He knew when to be funny and when to just be a friend. Sally Field's story pulls back the curtain on the beautiful, complex soul of Robin Williams. The truth she finally told isn't a scandal. It's a testament to his character. It's a reminder that the man who brought the world so much laughter was also a source of quiet strength for those lucky enough to know him. He didn't just play compassionate characters, he lived it. And in that one quiet moment, by seeing her pain and doing something about it, he gave Sally Field a gift more precious than any award, the gift of being seen. The legacy of Robin Williams is massive. He'll forever be remembered as a comedic titan, a once-in-a-generation talent whose work touched millions. His films, from Dead Poets Society to Aladdin, are part of our culture. His performance is burned into our collective memory. He was a master who could pivot from gut-wrenching drama to side-splitting comedy in a heartbeat. The world will always remember the laughter and the joy he brought to the screen. But as Sally Field's story shows so beautifully, his true legacy runs even deeper. Beyond the fame and the awards, there was a man of extraordinary empathy. The truth that Sally shared after 30 years isn't some dark secret. It's the profound truth of his humanity. It shows us that his greatest gift might not have been making people laugh, but making people feel seen. In a world, and an industry, that often puts schedules before people, Robin Williams understood that compassion can't wait. His life was proof that kindness isn't a weakness. It's a superpower. He used his platform for good, co-founding Comic Relief, to raise millions for the homeless. He visited sick children in hospitals, supported his friends through their darkest moments, and, as Sally Field can attest, looked out for his colleagues with a quiet, powerful grace. He seemed to be tuned into a different frequency, one that could pick up on the emotional needs of the people around him. The story of him stopping production on Mrs. Doubtfire is more than a touching anecdote. It's a key to understanding the man. It pushes aside the simplistic, sad clown narrative and replaces it with a truer portrait, that of a deeply feeling man who turned his own sensitivity into an incredible capacity for empathy. His own struggles didn't close him off from the world. They opened him up to the pain of others. Sally Field has spoken of her love for him, saying, "He should be growing old like me, for God's sakes. I hate it that he isn't here." Her words carry the weight of a friendship built not just on laughter, but in a shared moment of humanity. She keeps his memory alive not just as a brilliant performer, but as a generous and loving man. In the end, Robin Williams left behind two legacies. There is the thunder of his comedic genius, the laughter that echoes across generations. And then there is the quiet hum of his kindness, a legacy carried in the hearts of those he touched. Sally Field's story is a powerful reminder of that second legacy, a final, beautiful tribute from a friend, shared so we remember not just the whirlwind, but the profound and gentle soul at its center. What's your favorite memory of Robin Williams? That showed his incredible heart? Share your stories in the comments below. We'd love to read them. If this story touched you, please like this video and subscribe for more untold stories about Hollywood's most iconic figures. Your support helps us continue to share these important memories. Thank you for watching.